Strange Ride is brought to you commercial-free through the generous support of our patrons. Visit strangerideshow.com and click on Donate to help keep the history of the weird on the digital airwaves.
SpongeBob SquarePants is a character that I'm sure needs no introduction. Even if you haven't seen the show, you've at least heard of him. But did you know that he had a Broadway musical back in 2017? Many people scoffed at this idea, including myself. As a Broadway and SpongeBob fan, I didn't feel like it was a good idea, that it was just a cash grab that's trying to capitalize on the trend of turning very popular movies/IP into Broadway musicals, such as all of Disney's musicals, Shrek, Heathers, Mean Girls, Beetlejuice, Mrs. Doubtfire, Groundhog's Day, King Kong, and the list goes on. I mean, seriously, name an older movie, and they probably at least attempted to turn it into a musical. And now, most musicals are adaptations of other forms of media, so I'm not trashing the entire concept, but there is this trend of musicals that just feels lazy. It feels like they take something and say, hey, let's make that a musical because it's popular and we'll sell tickets, and not because someone, I guess, feels like it'll be better as a musical. Like, I can't imagine Stephen Sondheim was like, yes, I will make Sweeney Todd a musical because it will sell a bunch of tickets. That is probably how the SpongeBob SquarePants Broadway musical was first conceived, being that cash grab that will sell a ton of tickets. But this musical is far from lazy. I mean, as a matter of fact, I'd say that it is a fantastic musical that both respects and pays homage to its source material while being its own thing. It has a message to say and so much passion behind every nook and cranny of the show that I find it hard not to be inspired by it. Today, I will be doing an insanely deep dive into the story and themes of the SpongeBob SquarePants Broadway musical and proving once and for all that it is not just a simple SpongeBob musical.
It is a complex SpongeBob musical.
It is. Welcome to Strange Ride, where I tell the smartest men I know the weirdest things I know. My name is Savannah Verrett, and I will be your guide today, but you're not the only ones going on this ride. I have with me my friend Shannon Landers.
Hello.
And then, of course, the smartest man I know, Rob C. Thompson of Occult Confessions fame.
What's up? Yeah, I mean, Rocky. Did you mention Rocky? Rocky the musical?
No, I mean, well, that's why I said the list goes on.
Yeah, it really does.
I mean, there's so many of them. And I do want to
does.
say, too, that with that list, I'm not, like, slighting all of those musicals.
Heathers, the kids, my, like, pre-pandemic students, maybe the, like, last millennials really wanted to do Heathers.
We wanted to do Heathers.
I still do.
Yeah.
Heathers
But
is
Heathers has
pretty
become
awesome.
a little bit complex
Yes.
in our modern era.
Yeah, Heathers is all about...
It always was, to some extent.
Yeah, but it's gotten worse with, like... So Heathers, in case you don't know anything about it, is a musical about this girl who meets this kind of crazy guy, and he, like, convinces her to kill the popular kids because they're awful, horrible people.
It's a darker Mean Girls.
Yes, a much darker Mean Girls. And it's actually really good, and the songs are really good, but it's, like, with all the school shootings and stuff like that, it's definitely it's problematic nowadays, I would think. So I don't think it's a good idea to do anymore, as much as I still love the songs and stuff in it.
I mean, the musical was made post what am I talking? I'm trying to think of Bowling for Columbine. There it is, the Michael Moore movie. Post-Columbine, right? The musical's the movie's pre-Columbine.
Yes, the movies is like a 80 Winona Ryder and Christian Slater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then it just got, the shootings have gotten so insane in this country, so that, many regard Heathers as being, like, beyond the pale now as a musical.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I don't know.
And
so there are good ones. I mean, to your point, it really varies, I guess, depending on the passion people have for what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the ones that I listed were the our newer ones that have just come out, like Mrs. Doubtfire, Beetlejuice. Now, I do like Beetlejuice. I've actually seen it, but it's not as good as I want it to be. Groundhog's Day. King Kong, I heard, was pretty dumb.
Yeah, I don't think that was going to ever
musical?
go over
It
well.
was. They made it into a musical, and, like, that...
It's too much.
It's
just too much.
It ended really quickly, especially because it cost so much money, because they made this giant monkey puppet, and, like, it would take up the entire stage. So I'm sure watching it on Broadway, it looked cool, but I heard none of the songs were good in it. And then you can't tour a show that has that giant kind of puppet in it like that. So
Do you have any idea how much that puppet costs?
Oh God, millions of dollars. I don't know off the top of my head, but I know it had to have cost millions of dollars.
I think there's just content that doesn't lend itself necessarily to musical theater. I say that with, like, South Pacific right on the top of my mind.
Ugh.
In theory, I like the music from South Pacific.
You do?
It was my very first play when I was in high school. So maybe I have sentimental feelings about it, but South Pacific is a musical about guys on the beach, like sailors waiting to die.
Yeah.
Like in theory, that's not great content for a musical, but it turns out to be one of the great musicals of that era. So I don't know. Rocky, though, it just feels wrong. King Kong, it just feels like there's a mismatch. But SpongeBob feels it's like it's goofy, it's fun, musical comedy.
Yeah.
It's an appropriate.
And SpongeBob actually sings relatively frequently on his show.
Right. So it's already
So-
sort of baked in. Like the Disney stuff, like it's not really hard to port them
No,
over. It is a
no.
cash grab, don't get me wrong,
Yes.
but to just port them over to Broadway is no sweat.
Yeah, the musical I was sliding in that list was Mean Girls. So maybe I should leave that comment where it is. And we continue on. Oh, yes, and then this episode is going to be coming out on Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I just wanted to
What
say
a
that.
holiday treat for you.
Yeah, oh, and also that I know for a fact that this episode is going to be a 2-part episode at the beginning of this recording. So
Now
be
we can
prepared
tell.
for that.
What happened with Saw? Was Saw 3?
Saw was not, but Saw should have been 3.
Yeah,
it was 3 hours worth
It
of
was
content.
2, but we. Yeah. Anyway.
Sorry. Oh, yeah, we have to do the pledge. I solemnly commit myself to keep my hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the vehicle at all times while on this strange ride.
It's
Yes,
been a
Shannon,
while,
yeah, I was about to say,
sorry.
she hasn't been on the ride since
Not
we
since
talked
Disney
about
World.
Buzzy.
Yeah, not since Disney World. This
So-
is Shannon's first foray outside of Disney, isn't it? On this show?
Yeah, it is actually.
Yeah.
First non-Disney topic.
But Shannon grew up as a SpongeBob fan, as I did, and
Yes.
then also we went and saw this musical together on Broadway. So
We got a super cool experience from it. Too.
Yes.
I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah. I guess we'll talk about it a little bit. So I kind of wanted to go over the history of the actual TV show just a little bit and then go into the history of the musical. So in case you've somehow managed to have never seen an episode of SpongeBob in your life, the premise is pretty simple. It follows SpongeBob, who lives in a pineapple under the sea, and his friends as they live their lives in the town of Bikini Bottom. He is an adult, which is a very important fact, who has a job as a fry cook at the Krusty Krab, the best burger joint in the entire ocean, and the show follows him and all the shenanigans that he and his friends get up to. It's a comedy that sort of resembles our modern lives while still being completely silly and not taking itself seriously and being set at the bottom of the ocean. And then, of course, it's animated and it really plays into that. And there's exaggerated characters and movements. It makes it very entertaining to watch. And I believe that it has some witty writing that adds to the experience. The show is filled with a ton of reoccurring gags, and all the characters have very identifiable quirks that help make up their personalities. The wacky cast of characters includes Mr. Krabs, his money-obsessed boss, Squidward, his grumpy coworker / next-door neighbor, Patrick, his very dumb best friend, Sandy, his very smart good friend, and a squirrel who has decided to live under the ocean, and then Plankton, Mr. Krabs' arch-nemesis and villain in many episodes. There are so many more characters than this, but those are the most important ones. And then, of course, there's SpongeBob. He is a very positive person who is always able to find the good in things and people, and he lives his life with this childlike wonder. He's not completely loved in the town of Bikini Bottom, however. A lot of episodes' plots tend to involve SpongeBob not realizing that he is annoying his friends and neighbors, but at the end of the day, he always means well. The show was created by marine science educator Steven Hillenberg, who also happened to be an animator and working for Nickelodeon on Rocko's Modern Life. He would apparently make comics for his students to help teach his lessons, and that eventually evolved into SpongeBob. The show premiered July 17th, 1999, and is still airing episodes to this day. SpongeBob, once it was released, blew up in popularity, even beating out Pokemon for being the most watched Saturday morning cartoon, which, in case you don't really follow animated stuff, like, a cartoon beating Pokemon is a huge deal. Like, Pokemon is, like, the most popular cartoon in the entire world.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
Right?
I went to the first movie.
The first Pokemon movie?
Yeah, I was in high school, but I went to the first movie.
That's so.
yeah.
Did you watch Pokemon?
No, we just went for fun to like see what it was all about. Like we were trying to, it was an educational trip for me and my friends. Yeah.
But yeah, like everybody watched Pokemon Saturday mornings, and SpongeBob actually beat it for a time at least.
I mean, with Rocko's Modern Life, I mean, SpongeBob does like that animation style. It's like that unique Nickelodeon style that they developed. I mean, I know they had different shows like Doug and all that stuff, but this is like the Ren and Stimpy to Rocko's Modern Life to SpongeBob.
To SpongeBob, yeah.
But SpongeBob, I think, is less the gross out humor to some extent.
To
I
some
don't know.
extent.
It feels less adult to me. It feels more childlike than Ren and Stimpy, which was the show that annoyed adults. You know what I mean?
That's
it's like
fair.
the Nickelodeon version of The Simpsons.
And that's why I made a specific point to say that SpongeBob is an adult, because the show almost actually didn't get made because Nickelodeon was like, hey, we want SpongeBob to be a student so you can make episodes about him going to school, I guess, so he's more relatable to kids and stuff.
Yeah.
And Steven Hillenburg was like, no, he is an adult. Like, I want him to be an adult. And so he made the compromise of him going to driving school or boating school, because so SpongeBob in the show is a terrible driver, and like is always going to school to try and get his boating license because they drive boats and not cars in Bikini Bottom, and he never does it. He never succeeds. He never will. But
Rocco also, right, would have been, he had a job. It was like a play on modern life. Yeah. He had a neighbor. Like, it was sort of like Seinfeld, it had that kind of quality to it. SpongeBob has that Seinfeld quality to it. It feels like an adult sitcom, but somehow for kids.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting idea too that SpongeBob is so childlike. Like, you could watch the show and easily think that he's a child, but then you remember, oh wait, he lives at home by himself and he has a job. Like, and he's trying to get his driving license technically.
And he has a snail to take care of.
Yeah, his pet Gary.
It's just like a character on Parks and Rec or something.
Yeah, and I think that's part of his charm too, is that the fact that he is an adult but still lives his life with this childlike wonder. And I almost so I was rewatching some episodes of SpongeBob to prepare for this because I hadn't watched it in years, even though I love it and think about SpongeBob all the time, honestly. There's so many things that just remind me of SpongeBob because they've done everything on SpongeBob. And I think it's almost one of the messages of the show where it's like, just don't take life quite so seriously, because like the character Squidward tries to take everything very seriously and he's always very unhappy. But SpongeBob doesn't take anything seriously, and well, that's not true, but he's so happy all the time. Yeah, I just saw it. I think it's sweet. I had a really good time rewatching it.
I definitely liked the older episodes.
Yes, I will say, to your point about the gross out humor, it seems like from what I've seen of the newer episodes that are releasing, they've started going more towards like the weird gross out humor. The animation style seems like it's changed a lot, and they do like, it's way more exaggerated even than what it was back when we were watching it. When
like
Shannon
more
and I
for
were
like
watching
the
it.
shock factor seems
Yeah.
like oh, how weird can we be just to be weird?
Yeah, but I guess like it's almost like a Simpsons thing where it's like, when you've done everything, what do you do? And SpongeBob has this like absurdistness
Simpsons
to it.
did it, right?
Yeah, Simpsons did it.
Yeah. But I mean, Family Guy is the other one that springs to mind just for the like postmodernism of it. Family Guy is one of those cartoons that literally just does things because you'll be like, what the hell are they doing?
Yeah.
Or when does this gag end? SpongeBob has that kind of like postmodern quality to it too, but it's the innocence that separates it off from that, from American Dad or Family Guy, that class of cartoons, which are pretty much in the same time period, right, as SpongeBob, but are for adults.
1999 SpongeBob.
Yeah, Simpsons is of course much earlier.
Oh yeah, but I guess what I mean is that it's still airing to this day, so they're running out of ideas.
It's so insane. Why don't we ever let things go?
So, like we said before, SpongeBob beat out Pokemon, at least for a bit, and SpongeBob very quickly became Paramount's Mickey Mouse. And because of that, they wanted to put him everywhere. And this everywhere would eventually include Broadway. Not for a while, however. Plans for the Broadway show didn't really start to form until around like 2014, 2015. And even then, I think the only reason we knew about it is because there was like an artist who like made a tweet being like, hey, they just asked me to work on a SpongeBob musical. Isn't that cool? And then they were like, no, shut that shit down. Take that off. SpongeBob SquarePants, the Broadway musical, as is its official title, had a 1-month run of previews in Chicago at the Oriental Theater. There, it received pretty good reviews and was ready to move on to Broadway. The show was directed by Tina Landau, Kyle Jarrow wrote the book, and David Zinn was the set and costume designer. Another thing that makes this musical in particular interesting is that every single song in the show is written by a different musical artist. And I will read you the full list now so you understand how many different people that they had working on this thing. And how many celebrities they also had working on this thing. Yolanda Adams, Steven Tyler and Joe Perry of Aerosmith, Sarah Bareilles, Jonathan Colton, Alex Ebert, The Flaming Lips, Lady Antebellum, Cyndi Lauper, John Legend, Panic at the Disco, Plain White T's, They Might Be Giants, T.I., Tom Kenny and Andy Paley, and then David Bowie. David Bowie wrote a song for this musical.
It is a bizarre mix. The Plain White freaking Tees, like that's a one-hit wonder, right? Like,
yeah.
Some of these guys are real, like John Legend, like real pop top 40. And I mean, I guess that's mostly the case, but there's a few deeper cuts in there.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Bowie's weird in there.
It feels like everyone got an invite except for you two.
Yeah, Sarah Bareilles. Yeah, it's quite a mix.
Rob, if you had to guess who T.I. wrote a song for, which character, who would you guess?
Which character?
Did T.I. write a song for?
Should it be obvious?
It's hilarious. I don't think it's obvious, though.
I'll just randomly guess Patrick.
No, but see, that's the thing that's so interesting about this musical is that, like, none of the songs are really obviously for any specific character. T.I. wrote a rap for the character Plankton. It's a villain song. It's a villain rap song, and it's pretty. I actually like it a lot. But
Are we allowed
cheesy.
to play some of it or no?
I don't know. I don't know.
7 seconds, I believe, before you violate copyright.
I don't know what 7 seconds of the song I would want to show you.
Just Karen beatboxing.
I know.
Don't quote me on that, but it's something. There's some absurdly short period you can get away with.
That
I
sounds
think.
correct, but that sounds like old school YouTube rules. But
Oh yeah, maybe it's just a.
Yes,
urban
listeners
legend.
at home, search it up.
yes.
Yeah.
So, like, normally I would say that having this many different people writing songs for your musical is a bad idea, right, Rob? Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, it gets a little jukeboxy in a way. Like, how do you? It's sort of like the songs are all independent, and you have to plot around them, like Mamma Mia.
Yes. However, SpongeBob, like, I do think that it works, and it works because of Tina Landau and Jarrow. So they apparently, or Kyle Jarrow, they worked very closely together when writing the script for this musical. And when they got to the point where they wanted a song, what they would do is they would write out story-wise and style-wise what they wanted for the song. And then together they would think what popular artist, or what, maybe not necessarily even popular, but what artist out there would fit the style and story-wise that we want for it. And then they would approach that artist. And almost every single artist that they approached enthusiastically was like, yes, I want to do this.
That's wild. So, but Paramount also had like a blank check for this.
Right. Yes.
Cyndi Lauper isn't cheap.
No, the musical cost $18 million to make.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Is that common or is that really expensive?
Nowadays, actually, yes.
Considering the cast size, though, the money seems to be going to these composers for the most part.
Yeah.
It ain't Les Mis.
No.
Because like Spider-Man: Turn Off the Dark, you're paying for all that.
All that crazy business.
All the tech.
Yeah,
for
I
that.
think you're right. A lot of it must have went, but because like the set was super cool and amazing, and like.
But it was a single. It wasn't a crazy.
No.
Technical experience.
No,
right?
no. I wouldn't say that.
It had really cool moving parts.
No,
like,
it definitely did. Yeah, it's not like SpongeBob didn't necessarily have its Phantom of the Opera chandelier crashing.
Right, it's not a mega musical.
Yeah,
it's
I guess that's where
Book
we were
of Mormon or something, where you're not really going there to see the set, but the set's still fine.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the lighting
yeah.
design wins a Tony. Like, it's all great, but
yes,
that's not why you're there.
No, I will say, and we will get into this in a little bit. Like, they did a really good job. Like, they decorate the entire theater and stuff like that. But yeah. So part of the reason why all of the artists, like, what I read didn't say which artist turned it down, and they probably wouldn't say anyway. But most of the people who did say yes were
Limp
fans of the
Bizkit.
show with their kids. Yeah. Or maybe they did reach out to U2, and U2 was like, no, we were already on Broadway once, we don't want to do this. I'd like to think they didn't get an invite, though, I think.
9 Inch Nails. I can come up with some bands.
Also, but Shannon, I wanted to say Jonathan Coulton, I love him. He's one of my favorite like indie songwriters. He writes songs for video games. He's the guy who wrote Skull Crusher Mountain.
I was thinking that. Which song did he write for the musical?
He wrote the intro, the Bikini Bottom Day.
Didn't he do something with
That's a
Neil
good
Patrick
one.
Harris? They did a whole album together or something like that.
Maybe?
I thought he did, yeah.
He's all over the place. He did. How I first found him was because he wrote the songs for the end credit songs for Portal 1 and Portal 2. And Portal 2 is like one of my favorite games of all time. And so that's how I found him. And then I remember like looking him up on YouTube. And he did this thing that was like a song a week for like forever.
Yes.
And has all these like really weird, goofy, nerdy songs that are so good. Like he's so talented.
He's got like a Flight of the Conchords characteristic to him. They're like novelty songs, but yes. Yeah, they're comedy songs.
And then I was like, they might be giants did this. I was even like, as I was researching this, I was like, I didn't even know They Might Be Giants wrote a song for this. And I love them. They're so goofy. They wrote I'm Not a Loser.
Oh, cool.
So it's like, I love it. So another sort of special thing that SpongeBob did with its soundtrack is that it released the cast recording before the show opened on Broadway. And around that time and older, most musicals would release their original cast recordings after their shows officially opened on Broadway. But by releasing their cast recording earlier, SpongeBob was able to gain traction as a musical. People could hear the music, which I'd argue is very likable, and decide that they'd like to see the show before it even opened. And this is actually a trend that is happening on Broadway right now. And not to sidetrack too much, but I thought that this was a really interesting point, and I feel like it kind of works with what we were talking about. I wanted to make sure I was telling the truth about Broadway cast recordings coming out after shows open, because I felt like that was stuff that I had seen and known, but so I Googled it, and I was telling the truth for the most part, but shows nowadays are releasing their soundtracks before the show opens in order to try and build a following before the show opens. Mm-hmm. Six, Hadestown, Be More Chill, and SpongeBob, like I said, all apparently did this, and it worked. I read an article, First the Album, Then the Show by Ashley Griffin from AmericanTheater.org, that suggested that this is because of the current state of Broadway. And so she says that it's because of these mega musicals and Andrew Lloyd Webber and like Phantom of the Opera and stuff like that. Like people on Broadway, our audiences on Broadway have come to expect these giant show-stopping like technical marvels when they come and see these shows. And because of that, it has become so expensive to produce a show on Broadway that these producers are almost guaranteed to not make their money back. So
you got about a 20% chance of returning your investment on a Broadway show. And that gets back to what we were talking about at the beginning, the IP. Mm-hmm. Familiar IP. It's like summer movies, right? Why do we make Spider-Man 8? Well, because we know you'll come, and this blockbuster movie costs $300 million in the summer, $400 million. The same with Broadway. It's smaller numbers, but still, you don't want to just do, I do a whole lecture on this with my students, but you don't just want to do anything.
No.
Because you're going to lose your money.
And also, there's another really interesting trend that I think is happening in all art as well, but not just Broadway. But on Broadway, it is so expensive to buy a ticket to these shows. Like, it's at least $200 to, like, buy a ticket to see a Broadway show. So audience members want to make sure that they know they're going to like the show before they see it, if they're spending $200 on it. Yeah. So
because you can go see an indie band you like for $40, $50.
Well,
and you know their music. No, that's all I'm going to say. you know that music. That's why you're there. If you don't know the music, what if you hate it?
Yeah.
Well, I remember a big reason why we wanted to see SpongeBob was because we heard the music.
Yes.
Because I remember when we first heard about it, like, oh, that's going to be so stupid. We were so against SpongeBob the musical until we heard the music. You're like, wait a second, this actually sounds really cool.
It is really good. Yes. Well, and that's the thing. And that's why these shows that don't necessarily have these IPs behind them, like Hadestown and Six, even though, to be fair, they have like historical type things behind them that could help.
Six in particular. Hadestown, I don't know. You're selling Greek mythology. I thought that was quite a feat, but
no, that's fair.
Six is doing a few different things, marketing wise. Six is like,
and riding Hamilton's coattails.
Right.
So right. With the historical, Six is about the 6 wives of Henry VIII. They come back to life for one more night to put on a rock concert for you about how horrible their lives were.
I was going to ask what it was about.
That's what it's about. Yeah. But so of course an average Broadway audience member is going to be like, I'm going to go see a musical based off of a movie that I know I already love over something that they've never heard of before. And I can't blame them because I don't go see a Broadway show unless I've heard the soundtrack before.
An important part of the audience is tourists too. Over 50%, I think, of Broadway's audience
Yeah.
is tourists, which means it's not a New York audience. I mean, yes,
No.
they're there. There are New Yorkers who just go, but it is so expensive that you can't have the habit of going to
No.
Broadway unless you're independently wealthy. So most of these people are on vacation, and they're going to see one show. Are you going to see something that your kids like, or are you going to see, you know,
Yeah, Hadestown.
Right.
You know, like Hadestown.
cross your fingers?
The only reason people might like with that Hadestown is now just like everybody's like, oh, that show's so good, and it's been around for years at this point. But yeah, like shows like Mean Girls and Groundhog's Day and stuff like that. Oh, they turned that into a musical. We might as well see that while we're there.
I like that movie.
Yeah,
let's
that
go
movie's
see
good.
it.
Bill Murray's funny.
Right. It's part of your New York experience. This is not a theater audience on Broadway. I mean, that's, I think, what we also shouldn't forget. That Broadway's audience is like 40% theater hardcore rich people and 60% tourists. Some of 25, I think 20+% of those tourists don't even speak English.
Interesting.
They're foreigners. Maybe not 20% don't speak English, but 20% are from out of the country, which means a certain percentage of them are like Chinese and they speak not English.
Yeah.
So they're really there to just have the experience to
yeah.
watch it and hear it and get the gist of the plot. But boy, SpongeBob would be tough if you're
It would be
not
tough.
a native English speaker.
I would also say, and like, because I will say, I mean, obviously, I've loved this musical. I am not afraid to critique it, and I feel like one of the critiques that I probably would have for it is that I imagine that if you are not a SpongeBob fan, you might be a little confused watching the musical. I feel like it does a good enough job of, like, because the story's not complicated, it's really simple and stuff like that. I just think you might be like, who's this squid guy and why does he get an entire song, you know? But for the fans of the musical, you're like, yeah, Squidward gets a song. But for people who've never seen it, they're like, I don't care who this guy is, because he's not really attached to the main plot. He's just kind of there. But he's one of the main characters in SpongeBob, so he has to be there. So there's those interesting things.
I imagine it's an international product. I mean, I'm sure this show is syndicated in countries all over the world.
SpongeBob?
Yeah. So
Oh, I guess I wasn't saying for like people who are
Yeah.
coming from a different country and stuff like that. I guess
Yeah.
I was meaning like for you who doesn't
right.
really know.
Have
You
done all
literally,
the
Rob.
details of the plot
Yes.
in mind. Yeah. Be like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, like I don't know why this guy has a tap number all of a sudden. So basically, yeah, I mean, like what we were saying is, if you don't have an IP to grasp onto, like Beetlejuice or Disney, then you sort of have to make it yourself. And I thought it was really interesting point that releasing a cast album before the show opens, kind of breaking this tradition, is how these people are trying to build their like online fandom before the show actually opens. And I think SpongeBob, because SpongeBob came out in 2017, they released their cast album in 2017. I feel like they did this on purpose as a marketing strategy, because I think SpongeBob had this really interesting challenge, because yes, it had a recognizable IP. SpongeBob's one of the most recognizable IPs there is, but I think the IP almost worked against it sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree, because people would think, you wouldn't think that would be a good like adult musical to go
Yes.
see. I mean, it is for kids, but it's also for adults too,
Yeah.
who grew up watching it. There was adult humor in there.
For sure. And adult themes and stuff like that in it too. I mean, and SpongeBob isn't just one movie where we already know the plot. It's a show where literally anything and everything can happen in it. So people were understandably confused also about how you take an entire show and turn it into a musical. Because I can't really think of any other musicals that were based on a TV show. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like every other musical that I'm thinking of is based off of one plot, one movie. Whereas SpongeBob is like something crazy different happens every episode. Like one episode is just him in the kitchen cooking, and then the next episode he's fighting a ghost, you know? It's like I feel like this is the first time that somebody tried to do that. So it's a tall order. And then on top of that, people think SpongeBob is dumb. That makes me so sad. I do not agree with that. I think people don't give SpongeBob enough credit. Now, I do not blame people if they find the humor annoying. I know that, like, because of how exaggerated and how quickly it moves, it could be like, it could give you a headache, and like there's so many noises and sound effects, and the characters' voices, I know some people find them very annoying. Like, I don't blame you if you don't like the show, but to call it just straight up stupid, I just feel like is not fair to it. I think people really underestimate how hard comedy is to do, and the comedic timing in SpongeBob is always on point and is always so funny, at least to me. So, like, that's so hard to do. And then slapstick humor, I know, also gets ragged on for being stupid, but also that also takes so much skill to do and to properly time out and stuff. And I know it's animated, but it's still, like, I just don't feel like it's fair to completely discredit it. Like, I feel like it's a lot wittier than people give it credit for. Even though, like, it and that's part of the point, is like, it's just silly, guys. It's just meant to be silly, and people just interpret that as like, oh, well, then it's stupid. Sometimes it's fun to just have silly things around. And then I feel like anybody that I talked to about the musical, excluding you, Shannon, and like some of our other theater friends, they were like, really, a SpongeBob musical? Like,
Yes.
But now that's the response you almost want. That's part of the marketing. I mean, Rocky and that, King Kong. Oh, come on. How are they going to do that? And that's how they think they sell the tickets initially. SpongeBob, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't have that King Kong effect where you're like, how in the hell are they going to pull that off? It's more like, this is going to be lame, so I'm not going to bother.
Yeah,
That's
even
what it
people
feels
who
like.
like SpongeBob, like, I told friends who quote SpongeBob daily at work. I was like, yeah, like, have you like listened to the musical? And they're like, what?
yeah.
Maybe that's it. That the audience for SpongeBob and the audience for musicals don't have enough overlap. I mean, I said at the beginning that I thought it was good content for musicals. Like, it would make
is.
sense. Musical comedy.
Yes.
Well, obviously you think that.
Yeah, sorry.
But if you
got a
think
little
about
defensive.
the audience for it and the audience for musicals, maybe they don't quite overlap. I mean, back to Family Guy, Seth MacFarlane just loves to put music in Family Guy and stuff. I mean, the boys of South Park. But the boys of South Park didn't make a Broadway musical about South Park.
No, they made it about the Book of Mormon.
Right. They made a completely different
Yes.
thing. They were the brand. Trey Parker and Matt Stone were the
Yes.
brand you were going to see.
Mhm.
But they weren't trying to fit South Park into that. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. I hope they don't try and make a Family Guy Broadway musical.
Seth MacFarlane does like all. I'm pretty sure he's into.
He's
all
a
that
very big
song and
Broadway
dance
person,
kind of
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
I feel like I just saw a clip of him and Ariana Grande singing like Popular together or something like that.
I don't
But
ever need that in my life.
I don't even know how I found it. I wasn't even looking for it. It just appeared on my timeline and in my life
Because
now.
you bought tickets and
I know,
now
that's probably
the internet's chasing you down.
But yeah, and like Shannon said, like, and I was also like that, but I was more so like defensive of the show itself, in the sense that, like, I was like, a Broadway musical of SpongeBob could either go amazing or horribly wrong, and I was always gonna be like, it's more likely to go horribly wrong than to be amazing.
Rob, have you seen photos of the costumes for the show? Like, do you know anything
Yeah,
about?
yeah. I've read reviews and everything.
Yeah.
It's been a while. I mean, it came out, what'd you say?
2017.
Yes. It's not fresh in my mind, but yes, I've seen production photos and all that.
Because another thing I remember that was kind of deterred me from it, I assumed everyone would be wearing like mascot outfits and like a big giant sponge costume, but they didn't do that. I really liked the way there were just people wearing outfits that had the same energy as
Yeah.
Like
the
a Lion
characters.
King
Yeah.
effect almost.
It is.
Yeah.
And they're cute. But yeah, like, it wasn't until Will, who, if you remember, was the guest on our Spider-Man musical series. He's my Broadway buddy and expert. He forced me to listen to the opening number, and that was when I was like, oh, this is actually good. This is my thing now. SpongeBob SquarePants, the Broadway musical, would begin previews in the Palace Theater on November 6, 2017, and would officially open December 4th, 2017. I read that... Oh, I already said that, but I guess I can say it again. I read that the musical cost $18 million to create, just to remind you. It was very well received, and it ended up getting 12 Tony nominations. It would only win one, which was Best Scenic Design. And sadly, despite the musical being well reviewed, it would not end up running a year on Broadway. It wasn't bringing in as much money as was hoped for, and then there was drama with the actual venue itself. The theater was set to be renovated and lifted up 30 feet in the air so that more retail shopping spaces could be placed underneath of it. And this plan had apparently been in the works for a few years, but it wasn't approved by the New York City Council until 2018. So that approval and the lower than expected revenue was a death sentence for SpongeBob, and it closed September 16th, 2018.
That's okay. Nothing to do with like the SpongeBob content, but like, how do you just lift up a venue 30 feet?
Right?
I can't imagine. You're right. That is a very good question. I would like a Strange Ride episode on that, please.
Oh, God.
How do you lift up a building? Maybe it would be extremely boring, but
it probably would be extremely
it's a lot of
boring.
geometry
a
involved.
lot of time. I read a little
Trigonometry.
bit about it. You essentially had to they had to deconstruct all around it. And then they had these like poles that not poles, it's not the right word. I'm not a construction person, so I don't know the right word. Beams that they literally lifted it up into the air, and then they had to put things underneath of it to help hold it
support the
there.
thing,
And
yeah.
And it would take
Wild.
a long, long time. And also as if Times Square needs any more retail space too.
I mean, in hindsight, right, post-pandemic, where like New York has got all this real estate they don't know what to do with.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and they started construction on that in 2019. The actual of lifting up the building into
Did they
the
finish
air.
it?
I think they did. Yeah, they did. And I think like the first person back was like Ben Platt doing like a concert there or something, if I remember correctly. Because I was like, just put SpongeBob back. Just put it back.
Put it back. Put it right where you found
Yeah,
it.
for real. Come on. On December 7th, 2019, Nickelodeon released a recording of the musical where they got the cast back together one last time to record a relatively modified version of the show. I think they filmed it in some theater in LA, and they made like a very modified version of the staging itself. Like the stage was obviously much smaller than the stage that they used, so they didn't like have the full set or anything like that. It's basically the same show, but it is weird. They put these like weird commercial breaks into it and stuff, which I was like, ugh. But and then they cut some of the songs short because they wanted it to be only like 2 hours long instead of it being like 2.5 or whatever.
Is it 2.5 hours long?
I think.
Wow.
Well, I guess with intermission.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
I think 2 hours is about right
Yeah.
for a SpongeBob musical. I mean, it ain't
No. Well,
Gone with the Wind here. Like,
no, but most musicals on Broadway, you're there
I
for
know,
2.5 hours.
I know.
Including intermission and stuff.
Yeah.
Some of the songs are really long, I will say, in the SpongeBob musical. I do think some of them are longer than they need to be, but there's only one or two of them. And I will say that if you are at all interested in watching the SpongeBob musical, I don't think that the recording of it hits as hard. But I think that's just the problem with live art, is it's meant to be experienced live. And so unfortunately, I'm going to be making SpongeBob sound amazing, and you're going to want to go see it, and you can't. And I want to go see it again, and I can't.
This is not the first time you've done this.
Yes, I know.
Star
I'm
Wars
almost
Hotel.
using you as therapy for me to relive this experience one last time.
You were helping you process your grief.
I think so. I'm still grieving over the fact
The
it
Star
doesn't
Wars
exist.
Hotel, then SpongeBob
And
musical.
It also was just like when I was writing like this part last night, I was just like, man, I love theater so much, but it hurts me so much. I'm like, because you just had to be there. You had to be there to experience it. And that's what's so magical about theater, but it's also so tragic because you'll never be able to experience it again. And it's like, oh, God.
Well, maybe you'll inspire a listener today and they'll go and start their own SpongeBob the musical, and then we can go visit them.
Yeah, they can spend $18 million on creating a musical. I don't know.
It has to be exactly the same.
I was just thinking Paramount would probably be like, well, give us some money if you're going to be making a SpongeBob musical. There was also meant to be a non-equity touring version of the show, which got, there was like a little bit of drama for theater people around that.
Oh, yeah, because that's a Broadway show. You don't do
Yeah.
a non-equity tour. Equity
Yes.
is the Actors Union, everyone out there in Strange Ride Land. So the Actors Union, there's a lot of theaters that are non-equity in the wide world, but they tend to not be in New York. New York is almost exclusively equity houses on Broadway anyway. Off Broadway, it gets a little dicier. but the union would never be, I mean, not never. I mean, maybe they couldn't do anything about it, but the union would, of course, have a lot of issues with taking a union production, turning it into a non-union production, and continuing to make money off of it on the road.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I feel like they made a stink about it, but it didn't really stop anything. And maybe you're right that they couldn't, but it didn't really matter because COVID stopped it. So yeah, COVID killed that tour and it never came back. I don't even know if it got to tour at all. It might have just a little bit. And with that, I feel like we've pretty well covered the history of the musical. Nothing outrageous happened like Spider-Man, so we don't have an entire novel detailing every moment of its creation. And that's not really
How bizarre if it did, if someone got injured in the middle of... They just like walk around on the stage, right?
Right, yeah.
Just the pineapple fell on a guy.
Well, I mean, there is a part where like SpongeBob is like climbing up the volcano. And like, so like there's moments where they could have gotten
dangerous.
hurt. I saw him, the show that I saw, well, I saw it 3 times. But one of the
You were
first,
keeping it open.
The first show that I saw, Ethan Slater played SpongeBob, definitely, he cut his hand and was bleeding.
I remember you saying that, yeah.
And they had to like bring him out a towel, but he never stopped and he kept going. But I remember seeing that. But yeah, so, okay. Now I feel like is a moment for just a little bit of self-disclosure, because I feel like that this is important to say. Like, yeah, you might be listening to this and be like, yeah, it seems cool enough, but it's like not that good, Savannah. And to that I say incorrect. My opinions are always right. But but I am definitely biased when it comes to this conversation because I am a huge SpongeBob fan. I grew up watching it. It was my favorite show when I was a kid, and I even have very vivid memories of me thinking about how much I wanted to be like SpongeBob. Because he's just such a nice guy. He's so kind to everybody, and he's able to find the positive and everything. And I really admire that. So I was probably always going to love this musical as long as it was decently good. I watched SpongeBob pretty consistently up until I graduated high school, and I feel like the only reason I truly fell off of watching SpongeBob was because I was finally old enough to understand more adult media, and there were more shows available for me to watch. It wasn't until 2017 when I listened to the musical's album that I finally got back into it. And at this time, I was a student at the University of Maryland, and it was my first semester there. I transferred after getting my associate's degree, and I was there to get my bachelor's. And without getting into too many details, I did not have a good time there. I just...
and pandemic.
Yeah, the pandemic happened. And I mean, and particularly that first semester, I just fell flat on my face and just became like depressed, and like it was hard to get out of bed some days and stuff. And so during Thanksgiving break, Will forced me to listen to this musical, and I just fell in love with it. And I was like, I finally have this super happy, positive thing to latch onto again. And like, I latched onto it. It was like my life preserver at that point in my life. So I just wanted to say all that. And like, I don't know if this is like too much to talk about like on the podcast or whatever, but
it's your show.
I know. Well, that's why I'm like, I might cut this out. I don't know. But, but I felt like it was important to say because this musical is so special to me. Like, it is so special to me. And I feel like I needed to say that because I feel like people might be like, whoa, like, Savannah, take it easy. But I can't with this musical. It is like one of the most important things to me. And so, like I said, I saw it 3 times on Broadway in the very short amount of time that it was open. And I don't normally do that. This is not a thing that I normally do. I see a lot of shows, but I don't see them on Broadway. I normally see them when they're touring at our local theater. My grandma and I have like a subscription service to our local theater, so we get to see all these shows and stuff. That's how I get to see so many of them. But Will managed to get us tickets to the week it opened. We didn't see it the day it opened. We saw it the Friday it opened. It opened on a Monday. We saw it Friday. And so there was that. And then for Christmas, I asked my grandparents for tickets to go see it, and they bought Shannon and I tickets to go see it. And do you want to tell that story now, Shannon, about like, because on top of it already being like a life preserver for me, we had the most amazing experience when we went and saw this show.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to try my best to remember all the details. I'm sure you'll like chime in. But we went to see it. And so we had found out from Will that the understudy for Mr. Krabs and Patrick, too, he's understudy for both of them, had the same choir teacher that we did.
Yeah, he graduated from our high school.
Yes.
His name was Matt Woods. And Will, actually, we asked him to come and see the show with us. So Will got to see it twice because of me.
So Will was like, you know what? I'm gonna send him an email. I wanna message him like, hey, we had the same choir teacher. We should meet after the show. And we're just like, okay, we'll go. We're not going to stop you, but he's not going to respond to you. He probably gets. It was like
we asked him to. We were going to go to the stage doors. So in case you don't know anything about Broadway culture, obviously theaters have back doors where actors and the crew enter and stuff like that. And so Broadway fans have learned this, and that you can like see the cast and get your playbill signed by and stuff.
Like 80 years ago, like you act like Broadway fans just figured it out.
No, I know.
This has always been happening.
Yeah.
The stage door is a thing.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure people. I mean, I don't know. I didn't know it was a thing necessarily until I became a theater person.
That's how you go and get your groupies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found out that day.
But I. Well, I guess, but what I was trying to say is on Broadway, they have it set up where like you can go and wait to meet them there and stuff like that.
That always happens. The natural thing becomes commercialized.
Yeah. That is what I meant to say. Sorry.
Yeah, it's all good. People are like, what do you? We know what a stage door is. We've been to an Aerosmith concert.
I haven't. I don't go to concerts.
We
go
are
to Broadway shows.
We're the mirror image of each other in that way.
Sorry, I didn't even think about the stage door being a thing for concerts.
Oh, yeah,
I didn't think about that at all.
Yeah, any old thing. Any live performance event.
Well,
you can
now I
always
feel
stage
like
door it. The ballerinas, the opera stars. Yeah, all that stuff.
Interesting. Oh, now I feel like an asshole. I'll just cut that out. I'm mansplaining this to the audience.
I'm mansplaining a stage door to you as you mansplain to them. And Shannon's just staying out of it.
Sorry. Yes, we asked Matt.
Shannon could mansplain mansplaining to both of us now.
We asked him to meet us at the stage door because we were going to go to the stage door anyway. So we were like, oh, if you like come out, like say hi to us, like we'll talk to you for a bit, or we want to talk to you.
We would love to meet you, type of thing. So, but he got back to Will shortly after. He was like, hey, actually, like, if you just want to stay behind in the auditorium, like, I'll give you a tour backstage.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. So it was that, but he said, I will, if you guys want to come backstage, I will give you a tour. And so, like, he asked for our names and he put our names on this list. So we went up to the stage door. We walked past all these people that were sitting there waiting for the cast to come out. We went up to the stage door and the guy was like, what are your names? And we said them and he was like, all right, you're good. And he like let us in.
That's cool.
Yeah. Like, it was the coolest thing ever. We went down these like twisty spiral stairs to this basement. It was very small down there, but like we got to see like what it was actually like to be in this like Broadway theater. There were costumes everywhere. We got to see some of the cast members. We accidentally accosted Ethan Slater as soon as he exited his dressing room. We did not mean to do that because, you know, we try to be very respectful of the actors and stuff like that. But Matt Woods is the guy's name who it brought us backstage and who we technically we graduated from the same high school. He was taking us to the stage, and to get to the stage you had to pass Ethan Slater's dressing room, who played SpongeBob and who I had a huge crush on. And so the second we are getting to the stairs to go up them, Ethan Slater comes out. And so we are all like, and then he's like, who are all these people standing outside my dressing room? And I was like, oh God, this is so embarrassing.
Yeah, we like spooked each other.
Because we're like, oh my God, it's him. And then he's like, who are these strangers? We did not mean to, but yes. He was very nice though. He let me take a picture with him, and Will got him to sign the playbill and stuff. So that was cool.
Yes. And I got a selfie with Gary.
Oh yes! Oh my God!
Gary is a little like robotic like snail on a skateboard.
Yeah, I think he was made out of plastic or something. But yeah,
and they
super cute.
controlled him with like a little remote off stage,
yeah.
right? It was cute.
Gary is SpongeBob's pet snail, in case you don't know. But yeah, Matt took us up onto the stage, and like we got to take pictures on the stage. Like it was the coolest experience ever. So on top of me already being obsessed with this musical, I got to like literally go backstage and meet all the actors and stuff like that. It was an amazing.
It just goes to show you, it never hurts to ask.
No, it does not. It does not. And he is so kind. He did not know us. He did not have to do that for us. Matt Woods, thank you so much. Or Matt Wood, sorry. Matt Wood, thank you so much. And also, he was in that brand new SNL movie that just came out.
Really?
Yes, he was. I didn't see it, but because when that movie came out, I had literally no time to go see any movies. But yeah, like, so, like, he's going to do,
That's
like,
awesome.
cool
I
things
didn't
and
know
stuff.
that.
Yeah, so if he ends up somehow listening to this somehow, thank you, Matt Woods.
Yes,
Matt Woods,
thank
so
you.
much. Oh, my God. That was the coolest experience ever. You didn't have to do that for us, but I'm so thankful.
I don't think we stopped like hyperventilating for like a week after that.
I
We're like,
know.
oh, we went backstage. Oh my god.
I even took a video of, like, I'll see if I can find it to, like, post on Instagram or something, but of, like, the dude being like, okay, you're good to go, and us walking, like, downstage.
You got video of the guy saying you can go in?
Yeah, because we
that's-
were like, because he was like looking at this list trying to find our names, and so I was like, oh, let me pull out my phone. Like,
Were you sly about it, or were you just like a tourist?
I was just like a tourist. Well, I mean, that's what we were. He was like, these kids don't belong here, but they're on the list, so they
So
go
what are we
down.
gonna do?
Yeah, so they
That's the rules. That one looks like a terrorist, but what are you gonna do?
Oh, we
They're
did
on
not.
the list.
We were dressed up. I think I had like blue lipstick on.
Like,
Like,
I didn't have any tattoos then.
Oh my god.
Look good.
No, they wouldn't let you back anymore. Oh, we'll let you two back, but not that one. She's gonna start trouble back there.
That was so awesome. And then the third time that I saw it, once they announced that it was closing, I was like, I have to be there on the day that it's closing, and I did.
Really?
You wear all black.
No, I should have.
You Splash Mountain SpongeBob.
I did. But I didn't. I went and saw the matinee that day because it was on a Sunday that it closed, and Broadway normally does their matinees on Sundays, and I wouldn't have gotten home until like 4 a.m. if I
Yeah.
stayed for the other one.
Right,
So I was
yeah.
like, it's good enough to be there on the last day.
Yeah.
And it was, the energy in the theater was really cool and also really sad. Like, it was really interesting because people loved this show. I wasn't the only one. I wasn't the only one in the theater. Like, people loved this show.
She's like, people were really sad. Me and that other guy, we were both really sad.
I know. I brought Olivia with me to go see
Oh,
it
really?
on that day. Yeah. Yeah, I remember it too, like, because right before intermission, the narrator comes on and says, this is your last intermission ever for every show, because like the world is ending in the SpongeBob musical. But that day, because it was literally going to be one of the last intermissions ever, the entire audience went, no! Like, it was so cute. And then Ethan Slater, like during the finale song, he started crying, and I was like, oh my god. It's like everybody, even the cast and crew, they loved this show. People just genuinely loved this show. So I was happy I got to experience that. But yeah, so allow me, I think I'm going to start the process of reviewing the SpongeBob musical, because I want everyone to realize that it's good.
With like
I don't know how
plot
to say that.
twist, I hated it.
I
Like
know,
after
right?
all.
Well, that's kind of happened to me a couple times on Strange Ride, where I'm like, I really like this thing, and then I do more research about it, and I'm like, I don't like this thing anymore.
Yeah, you spent most of the Saw movies conversation complaining about the Saw movies.
Oh, but I love them more for that though. But I think it was like 1 Hour, One Life. I was like, fuck this game.
Oh,
by the
yeah,
end of
yeah.
it.
We got real mad about one.
So allow me to take you back to 2017. You have your ticket to go see SpongeBob SquarePants, the Broadway musical in New York City. It's about 7:30 as you make your way through the incredibly crowded and smelly streets of Times Square. You push through people in sort of creepy Elmo costumes, other rushed theater goers, and just your
few
general
Spider-Man.
tourists. Yeah, and maybe
Yeah.
even a SpongeBob.
Maybe even yes, that's true. A Mickey Mouse
Yes.
or a Mikey Mouse. Elmo.
I mean, and other rushed theater goers and just your general tourists as you make your way to the Palace Theater. You can see above the marquee a giant poster that has SpongeBob's iconic pineapple home on it, but this time made out of stage lights. Finally, you've arrived. The many light bulbs above your head are flashing excitedly and invitingly as you wait for your ticket to be scanned and for you to be let into the theater. You're all scanned in now, and you're making a very slow walk in a sea of other excited audience members walking towards the main theater. To your left is a merch stand with decorations showing you all the fun things that you can buy based off of the show. Ahead of you, although you can't be inside of it yet, you see the stage, or the theater. The colors inside catch your eye because it isn't like your traditional Broadway theater. Everything is blue, and you can even catch glimpses of something shiny. As the guests finally start to shuffle to their seats, you finally get to enter the theater, and you see that the entire thing is decorated. It isn't just the stage, it's the entire theater. There is shiny blue tinsel on the wall, neon flowers hanging in the air above you, special lights that fill the theater with this blue light and effects that make you feel like you're actually underwater. You're not in the theater anymore, you've been transported to Bikini Bottom. The stage is anything but regular as well. Instead of a curtain, there is a wall of sponges, and that has projections of different sea life swimming around. The stage doesn't end when it gets to the orchestra pitch. There is a curved thrust that wraps around the pit and essentially extends the stage out to the audience and down to the audience. It's like sloped so that you get down to, or the actors would be down to like the audience's level. To your left, you can see two interesting things. There's a seat that has a ton of SpongeBob paraphernalia surrounding it, and then another seat closer to the stage. This seat has all sorts of weird contraptions around it, but there's so much to look at that you sort of shrug it off at the moment. Looking up, you can see above the stage to the right and to the left are two giant neon orange Rube Goldberg-looking machines that are just hanging on the walls. And finally, sitting center stage is a cardboard cutout of the iconic homes of the main characters, Patrick's Rock, Squidward's home, and SpongeBob's Pineapple. As you wait for the show to start, you hear nice relaxing music that is very reminiscent of the background music that you would hear from the show. And so I do want to take this moment. I hoped I painted a good enough picture for you, but walking into that theater for the first time was like a magical experience. And maybe you can back me up on it, Shannon.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I was just thinking, is this your description from memory, or did you Google? Your memory amazing. I mean, you nailed it. Like, you made me remember things that it truly is like a magical experience when you go inside. I haven't been to like a ton of Broadway shows or performances, but it's unlike any other one I've been to. Like, it's just childlike, but also mature, because it's all recycled materials that they used to make the set, right?
Yes, they did, yeah. That was one of the set designer's big things, is he was like, I wanted to use things that fish would genuinely make their homes out of if they could make homes. And he was like, that would be heavier things like our trash. So it's like metal barrels and bicycles and stuff like that.
And the set moved.
Yeah, it did. Mm-hmm. Yes. And also I wanted to point out those neon flowers that I mentioned, in case you don't know SpongeBob. In the background in the sky, those are the clouds in SpongeBob, are these like pretty little flowers that are in the air. So they took those flowers and made them like literal neon signs and hung them all over the theater, which was so cool. And the seat with the weird contraptions that I was talking about is that, so one of the staples of SpongeBob is all of its weird little sound effects that it has. Like, every time SpongeBob walks, he's got this little like squeaky noise that happens. Squidward is a squid, so like he's got his tentacles that like suction cup and whatnot. There's all these sound effects that happen, and they got a live Foley artist to make all of those sound effects live as you're watching the show. And so that's his seat, which was so cool to me. The actors would like try and test him. Sometimes they would like do different things at these different moments in the show, and he would like try and keep up with them and stuff. The other seat with all the SpongeBob paraphernalia is Patchy the Pirate's seat, if you remember that. Yes. So Patchy the Pirate is another character from SpongeBob. He is played by SpongeBob's voice actor, and it's like him, the actual voice actor in a pirate costume, who is the SpongeBob's #1 fan and the leader of his fan club. And is like a character that comes onto the show every now and again as like to help be a narrator sometimes for like specials and stuff like that. So of course Patchy the Pirate has a special seat for this musical. He's actually what starts the show out. He comes out and he's like, oh, is everybody ready for the show? I can't wait to record it. And then the security's like, you can't record it. And he's like, oh, that's not fair. And they kick him out. He's not allowed to watch the show. And so because I believe that we're running out of time for this episode, and I don't want to leave everyone in suspense because I'm sure you're all dying to know what happens in the story of this musical, I will run through the plot really quickly. So SpongeBob and all of his friends are having an average day in Bikini Bottom when weird tremblings begin to happen. Sandy does some science stuff and learns that the dormant volcano Mount Humongous is no longer dormant, and all of her tests indicate that the volcano will erupt and destroy the entire town tomorrow night. This sets the town fish into complete panic. SpongeBob tries to deny that anything is happening, but Sandy finally gets him to understand how serious this situation is. The mayor calls an emergency meeting for all the townsfish, and this is where Plankton begins to scheme an evil plan. See, Plankton really wants control over the entire town, and to get people to actually enjoy the food that he makes at his competing restaurant, the Chum Bucket. Earlier in the show, he had the idea of hypnotizing each citizen into loving his chum burgers, but the idea was shot down because it would take too long to hypnotize them one by one. However, if they were all put into one giant escape pod, he could hypnotize them all once and for all. Oh, he could hypnotize them once, all at once, and then once and for all, he would be able to rule over the town once they got to the new safe town. However, people at the moment seem to be rallying behind Sandy, who says that she might be able to build a machine that could prevent the eruption. Plankton then butts in and turns the townspeople against science, saying that you can't trust it and that smart people would get lost in this situation. He also points out that Sandy is a land mammal and isn't truly one of them, so she can't be trusted either. He is able to convince everyone to outcast Sandy and to buy into his giant escape pod plan. However, the escape pod costs way more money than the town can afford, so they decide to host a benefit concert with celebrities to try and raise the funds. The townsfish all go off to either panic or go on benders or to get ready for the concert, but SpongeBob isn't convinced. He loves this town and he wants to save it. He convinces Patrick and Sandy to join his team, and the three vow to try Sandy's device and save Bikini Bottom. A bunch more drama happens with the benefit concert. Patrick accidentally starts a cult, which literally happens. Plankton and his computer wife Karen actively try to kill SpongeBob, but SpongeBob, Sandy, and Patrick eventually make it to the top of Mount Humongous, and they use the Eruptor Interrupter to hopefully prevent the explosion. Meanwhile, Bikini Bottom and its citizens have completely torn the town apart. SpongeBob then talks with the town and makes them see how crazy they have all been, and has a nice heartfelt speech about kindness and positivity, and I'll get more into that when we dive into the plot. And Sandy's device works and actually saves the town, and everyone decides it's time to have the best day ever, and the musical ends with everyone all together and happy. Yay! Yay!
That was easy.
Yeah, it's not a very complicated plot. I don't want to make it seem like that, because there is a lot of like things in deeper meanings to look into and stuff like that, but I don't want to make it sound like SpongeBob is this like esoteric thing that like you just can't like no only I can like decipher for you.
It's no My Little Pony.
No. Yeah.
It's a wholesome experience.
It is a wholesome experience, but I think
deep meaning at
yes,
parts.
exactly. And because
you mean commentary? It's making cultural
that's
commentary
what I meant.
along
Yes.
the way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I can feel that already in the plot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not subtle, but SpongeBob it never is. So
yeah,
but
it doesn't have to be.
No, it doesn't have to be. Yes, but because people can't see the show anymore, here I am to tell you what it was like. But we will get into that next episode. So, Strange Riders, you do have some homework before the next episode. You have to listen to the album. You have to listen to the soundtrack.
Or some portion thereof.
No, all of it. I will be quizzing you next episode. This will be a graded assignment. But yes, I'm very excited to continue talking about SpongeBob. Thank you guys so much for listening. Have a happy Thanksgiving. And
Happy Thanksgiving.
Till next time.
yes. Thank you for riding along with us. Please watch your step as you exit, and remember to take all personal belongings with you. Right now, and I think SpongeBob was I keep like clicking my nails. I feel like the Wicked interviews like
ASMR.
I